David Collins' life was perfect. 3 companies, millions in the bank, a beautiful wife, a loyal brother. But on this quiet afternoon, his housemaid did something shocking. She looked him in the eyes and screamed, "Shut you pay. There is someone in your bedroom." What he found behind that door destroyed everything. This is the story of the housemaid who saved the billionaire. It started with a phone call, a cancelled meeting, and a decision that changed his life forever. Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's story. Before we dive in, please hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I'd love to know. David Collins was not the kind of man who went home in the middle of the day. His life moved fast, meetings, phone calls, business deals that couldn't wait. Every hour was planned. He owned 3 companies, had over 200 employees, and was one of the richest men in Lagos. Men like him didn't take breaks. But today was different. He sat in his office on the 14th floor of his building in Victoria Island, looking out over the city. His assistant had just informed him that his 2 o'clock meeting was cancelled. The client had an emergency and would reschedule next week. David leaned back in his chair, unsure what to do with the sudden free time. He could call another meeting, review financial reports, or use the hour to make more money. But then a different thought hit him. When was the last time he went home early? When was the last time he surprised his wife? When was the last time he sat with his children without checking his phone every 5 minutes? He couldn't remember. So he stood, grabbed his keys, and told his assistant he was leaving. She stared at him in shock. He had never left early, not once in the 5 years she'd worked for him. David walked out of the building and climbed into his black Range Rover. As he drove through Lagos traffic, something unexpected rose inside him, excitement. He imagined Lucy's face when she saw him walk in early. She would smile, that bright, beautiful smile of hers. Maybe they would talk, maybe even laugh the way they did before life swallowed their time. He thought of his children too. His 7-year-old son, Ben, who loved to draw, and his 5-year-old daughter, Precious, who never ran out of questions. They were usually still in school at this time, but maybe they were home. Maybe they could spend the afternoon together. The thought warmed him. Traffic was heavy as usual, but he didn't mind. He rolled down the window, letting the warm breeze brush against his face while music played softly on the radio. By the time he pulled into his street in Lekki, he felt good, relaxed and ready to enjoy a peaceful afternoon. But the moment he drove through the gate, his mood shifted. Obinna, the security guard who always smiled and waved, didn't smile today. He opened the gate quickly and looked away, his face tense and uneasy. David noticed, but brushed it off. Maybe the man was simply having a bad day. He parked the car and stepped out. The house stood tall, white walls, large windows, flawless architecture. A house worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. But as he walked toward the front door, something in his chest tightened. A feeling he couldn't explain. The compound was too quiet. No gardener trimming the lawn. No generator humming. No music drifting from the living room. Just silence. David pushed open the front door. Cold air from the AC hit his face. The marble floor shone. Everything looked perfect. But nothing felt perfect. He paused, listening. No footsteps. No voices. No movement. "Ngozi," he called out. No response. He called louder. "Lucy, are you home?" Still nothing. His heart began to race. Where was she? Where were the children? And where was Ruth, the housemaid who was always cleaning or cooking? He walked deeper into the house. The living room, empty. The kitchen, empty. Then he heard footsteps. He turned toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Ruth appeared. She looked pale. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were filled with fear. She froze when she saw him. For a moment, they only stared at each other. Then she whispered, "Good afternoon, sir." David stared back, a knot forming in his chest. Something was very wrong. David looked at Ruth, and his stomach tightened. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Ruth had worked for him for almost 2 years. She was hardworking, honest, always kind, always smiling. She sent most of her salary home to her younger siblings in Enugu. She was steady, reliable, but now she looked terrified. "Ruth," David said slowly. "What's going on? Why are you whispering?" She didn't answer. Instead, she placed a trembling finger to her lips, signaling him to stay quiet. Her eyes darted toward the staircase leading upstairs. David frowned. Why would he need to be quiet in his own house? He took a step toward her. Ruth, talk to me. What's wrong? Her whole body shook. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked like she wanted to run, to disappear entirely. Finally, in a low, broken whisper, she said, Sir, please, don't make noise. A flicker of anger pushed through David's confusion. He was tired of guessing. He needed answers. Ruth, I'm asking you a question. What is happening in my house? She closed her eyes as if gathering courage. When she opened them, tears spilled down her cheeks. Sir, she whispered, voice trembling. There is someone in your bedroom. The words hit him like a slap. He stood frozen. Someone. In his bedroom. His mind scrambled to make sense of it. A thief. Impossible. He had security cameras, locked gates, guards. A thief? He asked quietly. Ruth shook her head quickly, lips trembling. It's not just one person, sir, she whispered. I heard voices. A man and a woman. David felt the floor drop from under him. A man and a woman. In his bedroom. In the middle of the day. His wife. No, not Lucy. Not the woman he had built his life with. The mother of his children. The woman he trusted completely. But the look on Ruth's face said everything he didn't want to believe. His hands went cold. His breathing turned shallow. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. Are you sure? He whispered. Ruth nodded, crying openly now. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know what to do. I heard them talking, laughing. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. The walls felt like they were closing in. David turned toward the staircase, the one that led to the bedroom he shared with his wife. His legs felt weak. His thoughts scattered. Part of him wanted to turn away, get back in his car, drive forever. Pretend this wasn't real. But he couldn't. He had to know the truth. He began walking toward the stairs, slow, heavy steps, each one harder than the last. Behind him, Ruth cried softly into her hands. At the bottom of the staircase, he paused and looked up. The hallway seemed longer than usual, darker. At the end of it stood the closed door of his bedroom. Then he heard it. Laughter. Soft, quiet, but unmistakable. A man's voice, deep, familiar. And Lucy's voice, light, playful. Happy. Something inside him shattered. He gripped the railing and climbed. One step. Another. Another. His body felt numb, his mind screaming to stop, but his legs kept moving. He reached the top. The hallway stretched ahead. The voices grew clearer, talking, laughing, comfortable. He walked to the door. Slowly, quietly. His hand touched the handle. For one last second, he thought about turning back. But he didn't. He turned the handle and pushed the door open. David stood in the hallway with his hand on the bedroom door handle, his heart beating so fast he thought it might burst. Every part of him wanted to turn around and walk away, pretend he never came home early, pretend Ruth never said those words. But he couldn't move. He was stuck there, frozen between wanting to know and fearing what waited on the other side. Ruth was still downstairs, crying softly. She had tried to warn him, tried to save him from this moment, but there was no saving him now. He thought about Lucy, his wife. The woman he married 8 years ago in front of everyone they knew. The woman who stood beside him when he was building his first business and had almost nothing. The woman who gave him 2 beautiful children. How could she do this? He remembered all the nights he worked late. The trips to Abuja and Port Harcourt. The times he came home exhausted and went straight to bed without speaking to her. Maybe she had been lonely. Maybe he'd pushed her away without realizing it. But even if he had been distant, this wasn't the answer. This was betrayal, the deepest kind. And the man with her. Who was he? A stranger. Someone from her past. Someone new. Anger rose inside him like fire. His hands shook. His jaw tightened. He wanted to break down the door, wanted to scream, wanted to destroy everything. But then he heard the laughter again, soft, relaxed, familiar, and something inside him froze. The man's voice wasn't the voice of a stranger. David had heard it 1,000 times. His mind raced as he pressed his ear to the door. The voices inside were comfortable, like 2 people who had known each other for years. Then the man said something, Then Lucy laughed again, light and playful. And suddenly David knew. He knew exactly who was with his wife. His brother, Kelvin Collins. His younger brother. The boy he raised after their parents died. The boy he sent to university. The boy he gave a job in his company. The boy he trusted with everything. Kelvin was in his bedroom with his wife. David felt cold all over. His legs weakened. His vision blurred as he steadied himself against the wall. This couldn't be real. Not Kelvin. Not his own brother. But the voice didn't lie. It was him. He closed his eyes, struggling to breathe. When did this start? How long had it been going on? Days? Weeks? Months? Had they been laughing behind his back while he worked to provide for them? He remembered family dinners, the visits, the smiles Lucy gave Kelvin, smiles he never questioned because Kelvin was family. How could he have been so blind? David opened his eyes. His hand was still on the handle. He could walk away now, go downstairs, get into his car and leave, pretend he saw nothing, pretend their secret didn't exist and continue living in ignorance. But he couldn't. He had to see it with his own eyes. He had to face the truth, no matter how much it shattered him. He took a slow breath, tightened his grip on the handle. And pushed the door open. The door swung open slowly, and the bedroom came into view bit by bit, the edge of the wall, the dresser, then the bed. And then he saw them. Lucy was sitting on the bed wearing only a wrapper tied around her chest. Her hair was loose over her shoulders. She looked relaxed, calm, almost happy, as if she had no worries in the world. And next to her, sitting on the edge of the bed in only his trousers, was Kelvin Collins, his brother. The room seemed to freeze. Time stopped. Silence swallowed everything. Lucy turned her head and saw David standing in the doorway. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The wrapper nearly slipped from her hands as she pulled it tighter around herself. Kelvin looked up too. His face went from relaxed to shocked in an instant. He jumped to his feet, his hands moving helplessly like he didn't know where to put them. David, brother, I can explain. But David didn't hear him. He didn't hear anything. His mind had shut down. All he could do was stare at them, the two people he loved most in the world, the two people he trusted with everything. Lucy finally found her voice. David, please, let me. But her words faded. What explanation could possibly make this better? David said nothing. He didn't move. He just looked at them with empty eyes. Kelvin stepped forward, hands raised as if trying to calm a wild animal. Brother, please. Just listen. This was a mistake. It didn't mean anything, I swear. A mistake. The word hit David like a punch. A mistake was forgetting to lock the door or dropping a glass. A mistake was not something you did in your brother's bed with your brother's wife. Something dark rose inside him. Not anger or sadness, something deeper. Betrayal. Pure, crushing betrayal. He had given Kelvin everything. After their parents died 15 years ago, David became his brother's father, mother, and protector all at once. He paid Kelvin's school fees, bought him clothes, made sure he had food, worked 2 jobs so Kelvin could go to university. When David built his first company, he gave Kelvin a good job, a salary, trust, responsibility. And this was the repayment. David's eyes shifted to Lucy, his wife, the woman who had vowed to love him forever, the woman who stood before God and promised faithfulness. Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head, trying to form words that never came. David wanted to scream, to throw something, to grab Kelvin and beat him until he felt the same pain tearing through his own chest. But he didn't do any of that. He just stood there, still and strangely calm while everything inside him shattered. Kelvin tried again. Brother, please, say something. Shout. Hit me. Just don't look at me like that. But David had no words. Nothing he said could describe what he was feeling, and nothing he said would fix what had been destroyed. So he did the only thing he could. He turned and walked away. He stepped out of the bedroom, down the hallway, down the stairs, past Ruth, who was still crying quietly. He walked out of the house into the hot afternoon sun, got into his car, started the engine, and drove away. He didn't look back. David drove through the streets of Lagos like a man trapped in a nightmare. The kind you wake up from sweating and grateful it wasn't real, except this one was real. He could still see them clearly, Lucy on the bed, Kelvin half-dressed beside her, both wearing the same shocked guilt on their faces. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. He had no idea where he was going. He just kept driving. Through Lekki, past markets, past crowded bus stops filled with people heading home. Everyone around him was living their normal lives, buying food, talking on their phones, laughing, but he sat in his expensive car falling apart, and nobody knew. Nobody could see the pain tearing him apart from the inside. His phone started ringing. Lucy. He ignored it. It rang again. Still Lucy. He flipped the phone face down on the seat, but the ringing didn't stop. Again and again and again. Then it stopped, only to start again. This time, Kelvin was calling. A sharp wave of anger shot through David. His own brother calling him like he deserved a chance to explain, like a few words could fix this. He grabbed the phone and threw it to the floor. It slid under the passenger seat, still ringing faintly but thankfully out of sight. He drove for hours. Afternoon faded. Evening crept in. Traffic thickened, eased, then thickened again. He passed corners of Lagos he had never seen before. Poor neighborhoods with wooden homes and rusted roofs, children kicking a ball through the dusty streets, women selling vegetables in bowls by the roadside. His entire life he had worked to escape that kind of poverty, to build something meaningful. Now it all felt empty. What was the point of wealth, of houses and cars and businesses, if the people closest to him could still cut him this deeply? He thought about his children. Ben and Precious were probably still at school, unaware that their world was about to break. How was he supposed to tell them? What would he say? Would they understand? Would they hate their mother? Their uncle? Him? A tightness filled his chest. Tears pushed behind his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He hadn't cried since he was a boy, not when his parents died, not when his first business nearly collapsed, not even during the hardest years when he barely had food. He wouldn't cry now. But the pain was crushing. It felt like someone had reached into his chest and ripped his heart out. And it wasn't just Lucy's betrayal. If it had been a stranger, maybe he could have forgiven her someday. But Kelvin, his own brother, that was a wound no amount of time could heal. He replayed small moments in his mind. All the times Kelvin visited. Family dinners. Sunday afternoons at home. Had they been sneaking around all that time? Sharing looks behind his back while he sat there smiling like a fool. He remembered how Lucy always cooked Kelvin's favorite meals, jollof rice with fried plantain, and how she laughed and said, "Your brother works so hard, let me take care of him." And he had felt proud. Proud that his wife and brother got along. What a fool. The sky darkened. Street lights flickered on. David realized he had been driving for nearly 4 hours. His body ached. His mind felt battered. But he couldn't go home, not now, maybe not ever. He needed to stop. He needed to breathe. He needed to think. Up ahead, a small town appeared. A few scattered buildings, some shops, and an old bar with a handwritten sign, Mimar Blessing's Place. He pulled over, switched off the engine, and sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle over him. Then he stepped out of the car and walked inside. The bar was almost empty. Just a few old men sitting in the corner, playing cards and sipping palm wine. The walls were painted blue, though the paint was faded and peeling. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, giving off a weak yellow glow. Behind the counter stood a young woman, probably in her late 20s. She had kind eyes and a gentle face. When she saw David walk in, she smiled. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. What can I get for you?" David walked to the counter and sat on one of the wooden stools. He didn't answer right away. He just stared ahead, lost in his thoughts. The woman watched him quietly. She had worked in this bar long enough to recognize deep pain when she saw it. She didn't push him. She just waited. After a long moment, David finally spoke, his voice tired and broken. "Water. Just water." She nodded, poured a cold glass from a jug, and placed it in front of him gently, as though she knew he was fragile. "Thank you," he said softly. She returned to wiping the counter, giving him space but still keeping an eye on him. David drank the water slowly. It was cold and refreshing. Only then did he realize he hadn't eaten or had a drink all day. But he wasn't hungry. Even the thought of food made him sick. The woman spoke again, her voice calm. "My name is Blessing. This is my mother's bar. She's not well, so I'm running it for now." David nodded but stayed silent. You look like you've been driving for a long time, she continued. Are you lost? He almost laughed. Lost was exactly what he was, just not in the way she meant. No, I'm not lost. I just needed to get away. Blessing nodded as if she understood completely. She didn't ask anything else. She poured herself a glass of water and stood quietly, simply being there with him. Minutes passed. The old men in the corner burst into laughter, one of them slamming the table and shouting, "You are cheating. I saw you." The noise felt distant to David, like it belonged to another world. And then, without planning to, he started talking. I caught my wife with another man today, he said. His voice was flat, empty, hollow. Blessing froze for a moment. Her expression softened with sympathy. I'm so sorry, she said gently. David continued, staring into space. It wasn't just any man. It was my brother. My younger brother. The one I raised. The one I took care of after our parents died. Blessing put the cloth aside and leaned closer, giving him her full attention. I gave him everything, David said, his voice trembling. I paid his school fees, got him a job, treated him like my own son. And this is what I get. His voice cracked. The pain that had been boiling beneath the surface finally pushed through. I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Was I a bad husband? A bad brother? Did I somehow deserve this? Blessing shook her head slowly. No, sir. You didn't deserve this. No one deserves this. David looked up. For the first time since he entered the bar, he really saw her. There were tears in her eyes. This stranger who knew nothing about him, who had no reason to care, yet she was hurting for him. Everything I built, he whispered. My marriage, my family, my trust, all of it, gone. Just like that. In one afternoon. Blessing reached out and placed her hand gently over his. Her touch was warm and steady. It's not all gone, she said softly. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still strong. Something inside David cracked open, and for the first time in 20 years, he began to cry. The tears came hard and fast. David lowered his head onto the counter and finally let the grief pour out. His shoulders shook, his whole body trembled. Everything he'd been holding inside for hours broke free at once. Blessing didn't interrupt. She didn't tell him to stop crying or pretend things would be okay. She simply kept her hand on his, letting him release the weight inside him. The old men in the corner had gone silent. They glanced at him, then at each other, then back at their cards. They understood. Life had probably broken each of them at some point. They knew sometimes a man just needed to cry. After a few minutes, David lifted his head. His eyes were red, his face wet. He felt embarrassed, but somehow lighter, like a heavy stone had been removed from his chest. I'm sorry, he said, wiping his face. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize, Blessing said firmly. You needed that. Sometimes crying is the only thing that makes sense. She went to the back room, returned with a clean towel, and handed it to him. He dried his face slowly. When did you find out? She asked gently. Today. A few hours ago. I went home early. My housemaid warned me, told me someone was in my bedroom. I thought it was a thief. But when I opened the door, his voice faded. The memory was still too sharp, too painful. Blessing poured him another glass of water. And your brother? How long have they been doing this? I don't know, he said quietly. I didn't ask. I just left. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't listen to their excuses. She nodded. What will you do now? That was the question he'd been avoiding. For 4 hours he'd been driving around, running from the truth, but he couldn't run forever. He would eventually have to face it, make choices, change his life. I don't know, he said. Part of me wants to go back and throw them out. Part of me wants to pretend it never happened. And part of me just wants to disappear. Blessing leaned against the counter, thinking. Can I tell you something, sir? Please, call me David. Okay, David. Can I tell you what I think? He nodded. I think you shouldn't make any big decisions tonight, she said slowly. You're hurt. You're angry. Your mind isn't clear. If you go back now and start shouting or throwing people out, you might do something you'll regret later. What could I possibly regret? He asked sharply. They betrayed me. They destroyed everything. I know, she replied calmly. And they were wrong, deeply wrong. But you have children, Ben and Precious, right? The mention of their names felt like a punch. Yes, his children, innocent, unaware, depending on him. Yes, he whispered, a boy and a girl. Then think about them. Whatever you decide, they'll feel it too. Take your time. Think clearly. Don't let anger become your decision maker. David leaned back on the stool. She was right, and he knew it. But thinking clearly felt almost impossible with pain burning in his chest. You're very wise for someone so young, he said. Blessing gave a sad smile. I've seen pain before. My father left my mother for another woman when I was 15. My mother almost lost her mind. She wanted revenge, on him, on the other woman, but my grandmother told her the same thing I'm telling you now. Wait, think, don't let pain control you. And did she listen? Eventually. It took time, but she did. And now she's happy. She has her business. She has peace. My father. He's miserable. The woman he left us for took everything and left him. Now he's alone with nothing. David absorbed her words. There was a lesson there, about patience, about allowing pain to settle before acting, about not letting betrayal turn you into someone you're not. What is your mother doing now? He asked. She runs this bar. But she's sick, so I'm handling things. She taught me how to listen, how to be kind even when life isn't. David looked at her, a stranger who had shown him more kindness in an hour than anyone he knew. Thank you, Blessing, he said softly. Thank you for listening. For everything. I needed it. You're welcome, she said. And if you need a place to stay tonight, there's a small guest house next door. It's simple, but clean and quiet. He thought about returning to Lagos, to Lucy and Kelvin. He wasn't ready for that. Not tonight. Yes, he said. I think I'll stay. David woke up the next morning in a small room with white walls and a single window. The bed was hard but clean, the air smelling faintly of fresh soap. For a few seconds he forgot where he was. Then everything returned at once. The bedroom. Lucy. Kelvin. The betrayal. He sat up and held his head in his hands. His body ached. His eyes felt heavy. He had barely slept. Every time he closed them, he saw the same image, his wife and his brother sitting on the bed, looking at him with guilt and shock. But something in him had shifted overnight. The pain was still there, sharp as ever, but now something else was rising beneath it. Anger. Not the wild anger from yesterday. This one was colder, clearer, focused. He had cried. He had run. Enough of that. It was time to take back control. He got up, washed his face, and put on the same clothes from the day before. In the mirror, his eyes were still red but now filled with something new, determination. He stepped out of the guest house and found Blessing already at the bar, cleaning tables. Good morning, she greeted with a warm smile. Did you sleep? A little, he said. Thank you again for everything. You're leaving? Yes. I need to go back to Lagos. There's a lot I must deal with. She walked closer, studying his face. You look different this morning. I feel different, he said. Yesterday I was broken. Today, I'm ready to fight. Blessing nodded approvingly. Good. But don't forget what I told you. Think before you act. Be smart. I will, he assured her. He paid her for the room and the water, even though she tried to refuse, then climbed into his car for the long drive back to Lagos. On the road, his mind raced. He needed a plan. First, he had to talk to his accountant, Mr. Tunde. If Kelvin could betray him with Lucy, then he could betray him financially too. David needed every account checked, every transaction examined, every kobo accounted for. Second, he needed a lawyer, a strong one, someone who could help him protect his assets and, most importantly, his children. Divorce, custody, property battles, all of it was coming. Third, he needed answers. Not from Lucy or Kelvin, they meant nothing now, but from someone who understood Kelvin's heart better than anyone. Mama Mary, the old woman who raised both boys. She would know what led to this. When he reached Lagos, he didn't go home. Instead, he drove straight to his office. It was Saturday, so the building was almost empty, only a security guard at the front desk. He went up to his office on the 14th floor and called Mr. Tunde. It rang 3 times before the accountant picked up. David, is everything all right? It's Saturday. No, Tunde. Everything is not all right. I need you to do something for me today. Right now. What is it? I need you to check every financial record in the company. Every account Kelvin has access to. Every transaction from the past 2 years. I want to know where every kobo went. Silence. Then Tunde spoke carefully. David, what happened? Just do it. I'll explain later. But don't tell anyone. Not Kelvin. Especially not Kelvin. All right, he said slowly. It'll take time. A few days maybe. Take all the time you need. Just make sure it's thorough. David ended the call and leaned back in his chair. The office looked the same. Big desk, leather chairs, wide windows overlooking Lagos. But everything felt different now. His phone buzzed. A message from Lucy. Please come home. We need to talk. The children are asking for you. The words hit him hard. Ben and Precious. Innocent. Confused. Waiting. But he wasn't ready. Not yet. He typed back. I'll come when I'm ready. Not before. Then he switched off his phone and looked out at the city. His city. The place that had given him wealth, success, and everything he had. Now it was time to protect what was his. 3 days passed before David was ready to visit Mama Mary. 3 days of meeting lawyers, reviewing documents with Mr. Tunde, and ignoring non-stop calls from Lucy and Kelvin. 3 days of sleeping in hotels and eating food that had no taste. But now it was time for real answers, answers neither Lucy nor Kelvin would ever give him. Answers only one person could provide. Mama Mary lived in Enugu, in the same small house where she had raised him and Kelvin after their parents died. The drive from Lagos took 3 hours, but David didn't mind. He needed the quiet. He needed to prepare for whatever truth she would reveal. The house looked exactly the same. Small but well-kept, painted yellow with a green metal roof. A tiny garden in front where Mama Mary grew vegetables and flowers. The same wooden porch bench where he used to sit and do homework as a boy. He parked on the street and walked to the door. Before he could knock, it opened. Mama Mary stood there, looking at him with the wise, steady eyes that always seemed to see more than anyone said. She was smaller now, more bent with age, her hair a full gray. But her face still carried that same strength that had held him together during childhood. David, she said softly, I've been expecting you. Of course she had. Mama Mary always sensed things before they were spoken. It was like she could read the air. She moved aside to let him in. The house smelled of cooking oil, incense, and memories. Everything inside was old but spotless. The same furniture, the same photos, the same feeling of home. They sat in the small living room. She brought him water and fresh chin-chin. He took the water but couldn't eat. His stomach was still twisted with pain. Tell me, she said simply. So he told her everything. Coming home early. Ruth's warning. Opening the bedroom door to find Lucy with Kelvin. The shock. The pain. The confusion. Mama Mary listened without interrupting, without judgment. Her face didn't show surprise, only deep sadness. When he finished, she stayed silent for a long time, staring out at her garden with her hands folded neatly. Finally, she spoke. I'm sorry, my son. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You didn't deserve it. Why, Mama? David's voice cracked. Why would he do this? I raised him. I gave him everything. What did I do wrong? She looked at him, tears filling her eyes. You did nothing wrong, David. Nothing. This isn't about you. It's about Kelvin. The poison in his heart has been there for a long time. David blinked. What poison? Mama Mary sighed. Do you remember after your parents died? Yes. You were the strong one. Even at 21, you took responsibility. You worked, you provided, you made sure Kelvin stayed in school. You sacrificed so much. Because he was my brother, David said quietly. That's what family does. Yes, she replied. But Kelvin didn't see it that way. He saw your strength as proof that you were better than him. Instead of gratitude, he grew jealous. The words hit David like blows. Jealous? Of what? Of everything. Your success. Your confidence. The respect people gave you. Even as boys, I saw it. When you won school awards, Kelvin would sulk for days. When you started your first business and succeeded, he said it was luck. When you married Lucy, he said you didn't deserve a woman that beautiful. David stared at her, stunned. He had never suspected any of this. I tried talking to him many times, Mama Mary continued. I warned him that jealousy destroys. But he wouldn't listen. The bitterness only grew. David swallowed hard. But why Lucy? Why my wife? Mama Mary shook her head. Because that was the one thing that would hurt you the most. Taking your money would hurt. Taking your business would hurt. But taking your wife, that would break you completely. And that is what he wanted, to finally feel powerful over you. David closed his eyes and breathed shakily. Suddenly so many memories made horrible sense. Kelvin visiting when he was working late. Offering to help Lucy with things around the house. Asking harmless questions about their marriage. It hadn't been harmless at all. It had been calculated. And Lucy, he asked quietly. Why would she do this? Mama Mary sighed deeply. Only she knows what is in her heart. But hear me, my son, a woman who truly loves her husband does not do what she did. No matter the excuse. The truth settled heavy inside him. What do I do now, Mama? He whispered. How do I move forward? She reached across and took his hand, her touch warm and steady. You survive, my son. You grieve. You feel the pain. But then you rise. You protect yourself and your children. And you build a new life, a better one, without anyone who seeks to destroy you. 2 weeks later, David sat in his lawyer's office signing papers, divorce papers, business separation papers, legal documents removing Kelvin from the company completely. Mr. Tunde had done excellent work. His investigation showed that Kelvin had been stealing from the company for over a year. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He had secretly moved money into hidden accounts, likely planning to take everything and disappear someday. The total amount stolen was over 20 million naira. When David saw the figures, he felt sick. But beneath the sickness was a strange kind of relief that the truth was finally in the light, and he could act. His lawyer, a sharp woman named Mrs. Okoli, looked at him over her glasses. Are you sure about all this, Mr. Collins? Once these papers are signed, there's no going back. I'm sure, David said, steady and firm. More sure than ever. She nodded and slid the documents toward him. His signature was strong, clear, the signature of a man who had stopped drowning and started swimming again. When he finished, Mrs. Okoli placed the papers into a folder. The divorce will take time, and your wife may fight for custody. Are you prepared for that? Yes. I have evidence. Phone records. Financial statements. Ruth's testimony. Lucy will not win this fight. And your brother? What about filing criminal charges? David paused. A part of him wanted Kelvin to suffer, to rot in prison for what he did. But Mama Mary's voice echoed in his mind. Do not let bitterness control you. I want him out of the company, David said. I want every kobo he stole returned. But I won't press criminal charges. He's still my brother, even if he doesn't deserve that title anymore. Mrs. Okoli nodded. That's generous, more generous than most. I'm not doing it for him, David said quietly. I'm doing it for me. I don't want to carry that weight. He left the office feeling lighter. Still hurt, but moving forward. His phone rang. Ruth. Hello, Ruth. Good afternoon, sir. I just wanted to check on you, to see if you're okay. Her voice was gentle, sincere. This woman had saved him, risking her job to warn him. I'm okay. Thank you. And thank you for what you did. You spared me from something worse. I was scared, sir, but I couldn't keep quiet. You did the right thing. And because of that, I want to do something for you. When you return to work, you won't be a housemaid anymore. You'll be the house manager, with a much better salary. Silence. Then quiet sobbing. Sir, thank you. Thank you so much. You deserve it, Ruth. After ending the call, David drove to his children's school. It was time to be a father again. Ben and Precious had been staying with his sister for 2 weeks while he handled everything, but now it was time to bring them home. When they saw him at the school gate, they ran to him, shouting, Daddy, where have you been? We missed you. He held them tightly, breathing in their warmth, their innocence. These were his reasons to live. These were his reasons to rebuild. I missed you too, he said. A lot. Things will be different now. Better. I promise. As he drove them home, listening to their stories about school and friends, David felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The betrayal would always remain a scar. The pain would never fully vanish. But he was still standing, still breathing, still fighting. And that, he realized, was enough. Dear viewers, what powerful lessons did this dramatic tale leave with you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I always enjoy reading them. If this story touched you, please tap the like button and give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it with someone who would enjoy it too. And before you go, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest stories. Thank you for watching, and stay blessed.